Good day. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada on July 25th, 2025 for Reason to Resist. As Reason to Resist reported earlier this week, Laith Marouf, the executive director of Free Palestine TV, was arrested in South Lebanon on Sunday, July 20th by the municipal police. Laith was then handed over by the police to Lebanon's military intelligence. After that, Laith disappeared for about 3 days. No one was able to reach him, and inquiries made to determine his whereabouts yielded no information about what had happened to him. Our report was published during the day on July 22nd. This was the third day of Laith's disappearance. In it, I interviewed Free Palestine TV producer Hadi Hotait, who was with Laith when he was arrested and taken away. Then, late at night on July 22nd, about 10 hours after we published our report on Laith's detention, Laith was finally released from military intelligence headquarters in Beirut. For the time being, Laith is not prepared to be interviewed about what happened to him. He's currently consulting legal counsel and for entirely understandable reasons. In the interim, however, Reason to Resist has spoken to a knowledgeable source inside Lebanon's military intelligence. Based on the information received from our source and based on other publicly available information, we've managed to get a much better sense of what happened to Laith. Here's what happened. Hours before Laith was arrested on Sunday, Free Palestine TV published a report from the Lebanese border village of Khiam, where an Israeli drone had just fired missiles on civilians reconstructing their home. There, Laith and Hadi spoke to a neighbor of the targeted civilians. The neighbor, whose name is Abu Ali, blasted the Lebanese government of Nawaf Salam for doing nothing to defend Lebanon's devastated border villages. Here's what Abu Ali had to say to Hadi and Laith. Now, before I play this clip from the Free Palestine TV report of July 20th, 2025, notice the title of this piece, Death from the Sky, Silence from the State. Israel must be stopped.
بس بدي منك شغله انه هذه المقابله تروح دغري مباشر مش رح تلغيها. بديش تلغيها. خليها توصل لكل العالم. نحن بالخيام هذه ضيعه دافع الدم من سنه 78 مزرت الخيام تدبح فيها 78 ختيار. الصغير فيه عمره 55 والكبير عمره 90 سنه. هذه الخيام مش من اليوم تدفع فواتير. صار لها زمان من الخيام تدفع فواتير. بتمنى منك يا رئيس الحكومة تزورها للخيام وتشوف الخيام كيف مدمرة. بس استنكر مرة واحدة، صار لك 7-8 أشهر عام رئيس حكومة، استنكر بس مرة واحدة يا خيي، ولو نحن مش شعبك يا خيي إذا بايعيننا قولوا نحن بعناكم.
Now, as you saw, the resident of Khiam, Abu Ali, who spoke to Free Palestine TV, was blistering in his condemnation of the Prime Minister and government of Lebanon, asking whether they had been sold out by the prime minister, why he didn't even have the gumption to condemn what Israel was doing, the blatant murder of Lebanese civilians in the south of the country, asking if they were not also citizens of Lebanon who merited the protection of the state. This was obviously quite strident commentary from a resident of Khiam who was deeply distressed by the loss of his friend. Whether or not this had anything to do with the decision of the Lebanese army to take Laith into custody and interrogate him over 3 days is not something that I'm able to say with any degree of confidence, but it is notable that all of this happened to Laith so soon after this report was published. Now, before I continue with our account of what happened to Laith, bear in mind that I've been in South Lebanon on more than 10 occasions since Israel's genocide began in October 2023. On almost all those trips to South Lebanon, I was accompanied by Laith or Hadi or both of them, usually both of them. And during those trips, I had numerous interactions with Lebanese soldiers, as well as security officials of Hezbollah, and some interactions also with UNIFIL, the United Nations so-called peacekeeping force in the south of Lebanon. Although I'm not a citizen of Lebanon and do not work for a major media organization, on none of these trips was I arrested or detained for more than 30 minutes for questioning at a military checkpoint. On a couple of occasions, we were told that we could not enter South Lebanon because we didn't have the proper documentation or the situation was too unsafe. But none of us was arrested. We were simply turned away and told to go back where we came from. On most of our trips to South Lebanon, we were not questioned at all by Lebanese soldiers who manned the checkpoints, and we were simply waved through the checkpoint without any incident. So what I'm about to describe to you is, in my experience, extremely unusual. On Sunday, when they entered South Lebanon, Hadi and Laith were not questioned at the military checkpoint through which they passed. They went through that checkpoint without incident. What happened is that after passing through the checkpoint and as they entered by car the Lebanese border village of Mais al-Jabal, their vehicle was suddenly surrounded by more than 10 men on scooters. Israel's genocide forces, by the way, have demolished this village as they have demolished so many villages along the Lebanon-Palestine border. As Laith and Hadi tried to ascertain why they had been stopped at the outskirts of this village, one of the men who had surrounded them with scooters called the municipal police on his cell phone. A municipal police officer then appeared at the scene some minutes later, and he advised Hadi and Laith that they would have to undergo interrogation by Lebanese military intelligence. Laith was placed in handcuffs. He and Hadi were then handed over to the army barracks at Tibnin, a Lebanese municipality that is about 25 kilometers east of Tyre in South Lebanon. After an investigation lasting hours and the confiscation of their phones, Hadi and Laith were told that they would be released. But for unknown reasons, military intelligence changed its mind. Hadi was allowed to go, but Laith was taken in handcuffs to military intelligence headquarters in Sidon, the third largest city of Lebanon, which lies south of Beirut on the Mediterranean coast. There, Laith was extensively questioned, after which he spent the night in a jail cell. On Monday, July 21st, Laith was transferred from Sidon to the Lebanese military intelligence headquarters in Beirut. Laith was transported to the Ministry of Defense and the military intelligence headquarters in particular in handcuffs and blindfolded in the hatch of a large vehicle. When he arrived at the military intelligence, he was ordered to shower and then placed in a cold room wearing nothing but his underwear and still wet from the shower. In that room, Laith underwent prolonged interrogation while blindfolded, handcuffed, and standing. He was asked repeatedly to identify to which sect he belonged, but he refused to answer, explaining to his interrogator that he does not identify with any particular sect and is simply a Muslim. Laith was also questioned about the contacts in his cell phone. One of those contacts happens to be Israeli journalist Gideon Levy. Laith met Gideon Levy in Montreal many years ago. The intelligence officer who questioned Laith recognized that Levy's name was Israeli, but apparently he did not know who Gideon Levy was. That's some intelligence officer. Laith had to explain to his interrogator that Gideon Levy writes for the liberal Israeli newspaper Haaretz, and that he has been very critical of the Israeli government for many years. Laith was then placed in a cell with about 5 other inmates. Until that point in time, he had not eaten while in detention, and he and his cellmates were given 1 bowl of rice and mushrooms to share among themselves. The next day, Wednesday, July 22nd, Laith was informed that he would receive a visitor from the Canadian embassy in Beirut. It was at that point that Laith was finally afforded an opportunity to make 1 phone call. He was asked by a military intelligence officer to whom he wished to make that 1 phone call and decided to call the doorman of his building because his wife and children were traveling in Canada and he was responsible for taking care of their cats who had not eaten in 2 days. And apparently the military intelligence officer was quite surprised that this is the 1 call that Laith decided to make in those circumstances. Now, several hours later, the consul general of the Canadian embassy in Beirut came to the military intelligence headquarters and was afforded an opportunity to meet with Laith. During that meeting, a military intelligence officer who, as I understand it, was responsible for public relations, was in the room for the entire time listening to the conversation. The consul general said the embassy had received thousands of messages asking that Canada secure Laith's release and indicated that this was a very unusual case for that reason. The consul general learned in that conversation the identity of Laith's wife. She happens to be to occupy an important position at a major university in Lebanon, and had been invited to the Canadian embassy to be honored for her accomplishments in academia some months ago. And the consul general was not aware at the time that she sat down to speak to Laith that this academic, this professor from a Lebanese university, was in fact Laith's spouse. Now, bear in mind that all of this was being overheard by the military intelligence officer who was in the meeting room where Laith was speaking to the consul general. It was in these circumstances that the military intelligence officer in that room suddenly announced that Laith would be released that day. After the consul general departed, Laith had to wait several hours for his release, but indeed he was let go late on Tuesday night, and he was dropped off unceremoniously on a highway between Beirut and Damascus. Given the condition of his phones, which had been returned to him in an inoperable condition, he had to walk for some time in the direction of Beirut on this highway until he finally found a way to contact friends who collected him on the streets of Beirut. Now, according to Laith Marouf of the Union of Journalists in Lebanon, no journalist in Lebanon has been arrested for more than 24 hours by the Lebanese army since the end of Lebanon's civil war. This would make Laith the longest detained journalist in Lebanon in 43 years, at least if we're talking about detention by government authorities or the military. An organization by the name of Daraj Media issued a statement about Laith's detention not too long ago. And here is the Arab language version of that statement. And I'm going to show you the Grok translation. And what Daraj Media had to say is that Laith and Hadi were documenting Israeli attacks on southern Lebanon when municipal police detained them on the evening of Sunday, July 20th, and handed them over to the army at the Tibnin barracks. After an investigation lasting hours and the confiscation of their phones, Hotate was released while Marouf was transferred to the intelligence headquarters in Sidon, then to the Ministry of Defense. He underwent a phone search and interrogation regarding his communication with foreign numbers, as well as unlawful questioning and pressure, despite his media work justifying such contacts. He was later released without any charges or pledges. I repeat, at no time in any of this ordeal was Laith accused by anybody, either formally or informally, of having committed any kind of a crime. And I want to emphasize here that Daraj Media is characterizing the questioning and the pressure as unlawful. And indeed, in any country where media freedom is respected and that has and respects principles of due process, Laith would not have been treated in this way. Even if there had been some grounds to arrest him and interrogate him, he would have been given access to a lawyer much sooner than he was given it, and would have had an opportunity to inform his family of his whereabouts long before he was finally afforded that opportunity. And based upon the way everything unfolded here, it's not unreasonable to infer that the only reason that he got out when he did, and the only reason why he was afforded the opportunity to call anybody when he was afforded that opportunity, is because of the pressure that was placed on the Canadian embassy to act by the many supporters and well-wishers that Laith and Free Palestine TV have around the world. Now, just in case you're wondering who or what Daraj Media is, it is a pan-Arab media outlet that was launched in 2017 to counter criticisms of bias in the Lebanese media. It was among the dozens of media organizations from around the world that investigated the Panama Papers with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So I myself, I'm not a lawyer qualified to practice law in Lebanon. I am qualified to practice here in Canada. I can't confirm or deny the characterization of what was done to Laith as being unlawful. I am deferring here to Daraj Media. I will say this, however, and I'm going to reiterate what I just said, that in a country that respects press freedom and due process, unquestionably what was done to Laith would be unlawful. Of course, many questions remain unanswered. The most important, I think, being why did Lebanon's military intelligence violate the rights of Laith Marouf and engage in this intimidating behavior towards him? Was it his criticisms of the Lebanese government? Or is Israel somehow behind this? We know for sure that Laith is on the radar of Israel because Israeli government officials have condemned him in the past. Or is this simply the handiwork of some powerful person who bears a private grudge against Laith? I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I can assure you that at Reason to Resist, we'll continue to pursue these questions in the weeks ahead. In the meantime, I want to thank all members of our audience and all members of the audience of FPTV who pressured the Canadian government to intervene. It's no exaggeration to say that you contributed to the release from military detention of this exceptional journalist. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal on July 25th, 2025.